227 Lake Road, located at 227 Lake Road, Kit Elmer Lucio Jr. is requesting a use variance to legalize an existing four-family dwelling on a .24 acre parcel having SBL number 063.09-1-42, located in a WD Waterfront Development District under Section 225-22 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Good evening, I'm Albert Lucio. I purchased 227 Lake Road, May of 2019, with the understanding that there was 4 tenants in the unit. I bought the property as is. In the purchase offer, the seller, which was an estate, Mr. Al Fordham's property, and his daughter was in charge of the estate, actually wrote in the purchase offer that she wanted the tenants to stay. The same tenants have been there since I purchased the property through COVID. None of them have ever missed a payment. I've not had any issues with them. My intent was not to change any of the footprint, to remodel it, clean it up. Originally, I had negotiated for the estate to remove all the debris from the property. They left their way of removing garbage was a 6-yard dumpster with no bottom to it. And then every 6 months they would come with a grapple and put it in a dump truck and take it to the dump. Obviously I removed that and put a 40-yard dumpster there, about 2 or 3 of them, to clean up the property. The septic system had failed. I find that there was a pump when it would fail in the past, they'd plug it in and pump the extra into the bag. I immediately pulled the permit and hooked it up to the sewer. I added a furnace. I remodeled when the septic had backed up. The lower unit was disgusting, and I remodeled it, and that's when the building inspector had noticed. He had thought I was adding a unit. I was just repairing the unit that was just not livable or usable in the bathroom. Again, my intent is to first repair the break wall, if granted the variance, continue to clean up the property. Again, I don't plan on changing anything with the property, the size of the unit or anything, just remodel them. I'd like to side it with windows on, the gutters, take care of the landscaping, make it so that it is profitable to carry itself. Bought it as multifamily, not realizing that there was an issue with the multifamily from 2-family to a 4-family.
Help me understand, when you purchased it, how many tenants were in there?
There's 4. There's 4 leases that were given to me.
One of their 4 tenants?
Yes.
There are currently 4 tenants.
Yes.
And the COO is
For a 2-family.
for 2-family? And that COO has been on file for?
I don't have it in front of me, but there is quite a history with this property. Several variances were granted back in the 60s for a variety of office, residential, and mixed use of this particular address. But the town, from the town standpoint, it's legal as a 2-family. And over the course of, at some point in history, it was converted, 2 additional units were created.
So you got variance today for 2-family at some point. That's not zone multi-family there.
Correct. It is legal as a 2-family.
I have some photos of properties across the street, parking lot, Castaway's next door. There's other rentals at 245, 247, 249 that are multifamily. I'd like to make this property look nicer and similar to the properties that are to the left of the parking lot of Castaway's. Want to see the photos? I can give you those. I have some neighbors from the, I live it down at 68, so there's neighbors down near the inlet, and I went as far as up to 426. I had 4 different letters from neighbors that would like to see the property improved. Again, I don't plan on making any changes to the size or anything.
Is this for now? I mean, this is on file. This is this board has jurisdiction to
Well, the use variances obviously can be granted by the board if you've seen tonight.
Right, no, I understood, but for this,
I don't really, I don't know if I see any distinction. But typically, the issue is, in this situation, would be on whether or not it's self-created. But it's not an issue of strict liability. The board would have to assess all of the evidence that the applicant's providing, which includes 4 units, apparently, that was observable from the road or upon inspection, 4 leases, conversations had with the seller of the property, apparently 4 residences. So I think typically the factor here is whether or not this is something that should have been addressed prior to acquisition. If that were the case, I think it's a much easier call. But in fairness to the applicant in this situation, for all intents and purposes, all the information that was supplied from the seller and that was observable, with the exception of going to the town, I'm not sure from what Mr. Artuso said how, in fact, clear those records were. One of the questions I wanted to ask Mr. Clucio was, you said there are other, are those pre-existing non-conforming multiple family, or in other words, are they greater than 2 family homes, or are they just other 2 family?
I believe 245, 247, 249 are owned by the same. I don't know the tax, if they're separate taxes. I know they're multi with a 3-car, or there's a 4th structure with a garage that they all share, but I don't know them.
Josh, do you know what those properties look like?
Yeah,
I have the photos here if you want to see them.
they're just to the east of the subject property, with the exception of Castaway's parking lot being in between them. And there are 3 parcels in a row that have multiple buildings on them. And our assessment records indicate that there are multiple residences in each one of those.
So they're actually listed as multifamily in the tax rolls?
Yes.
Okay, because that's when I was looking, of course, I don't have access to everything. It looked like everything in that area was at least on the record as a single-family residential. But 245, it doesn't show, the site that I'm limited to didn't show that there are multiple buildings. It just shows that it's a 2-family or a single-family residential property, as is 251 and 257.
Yeah, these all appear to be built between 1910 and 1920.
Right, they were all cottages.
But they are assessed as multiple residences.
Now, within 257, there's multiple families in there, or there's a single family in each 257, 259,
Right,
249, 245?
That's a good point. I do not know
Is
for
that
sure.
From what I
They were
observed-
single?
What I've seen is there's 2 tenants in each. I think there's building.
With only a single entrance?
I didn't get that in depth for the property. I've seen just more than 1 family in 1 unit. And the restaurant is across the street. The fire department had reached out to me. They're looking to see if they can get a permit to put a dock out. Because L4, I guess, if you look at the survey map, the triangle piece was purchased by him and added to the original parcel.
Mm-hmm.
And in that space, they would like a lease to put a dock out.
And that would be instead of the dock that they have down at the Myers property?
I guess. I don't. I think they were talking about moving it.
Yeah, the town received some grant funds from the state,
Okay.
part of which was for a permanent dedicated dock for the West Webster fire boat.
Okay.
And they've been searching for a location for about 9 months now. And this is one of the locations they're considering.
So then that location, you would have the dock and all of the associated parking.
The parking that is used now, there's 4 cars. They're right in front. There's 4 spots.
For the home. Right, but I'm saying if
Oh yeah, where the
for that additional use, you could have several other vehicles in addition to the 4 for the
Right.
tenants.
I'm sure they would have to. Again, I don't know what the fire department would have to do for approvals, but I'm assuming that they're going to have to have engineering and come and present. I'm just saying that they reached out to me and wanted to look at the space.
I was looking at the rent schedule. What surprises me is you can fit 4 apartments into 1,800 square feet. With hallways and access, and, fire escape. and all
So
that.
there's 2 up, and there's a studio and a 1-bedroom on the first floor.
No, there's an overhead door on the front. Is that living space?
He's
there?
got it, yeah, behind that is the kitchen. He had it closed off. I mean, I would professionally remodel the exterior.
With the new lake regulations, are you allowed to have living space on that floor? So I know with the homes we had further up, with the recent variances, the state DEC, I think it's the DEC, doesn't allow living space on that first floor. So that any of the new houses being constructed, that first floor of living space can only be a garage, it can't be human occupancy.
How are the other homes occupied?
They're existing.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not sure what you're talking about. But I guess what you're saying, if you look at all the newly constructed homes, there's no first floor there.
I think it's parking and storage, but the upper floors above the parking is where the state permits living.
No, I know, and I know what she's saying, because I've read that as well. So does that also count, is what I'm wondering, toward a remodel then, what you're thinking?
Well, and that's what I don't know. Is it it's a remodel that wasn't originally permitted? Or is it on record as being living space? I don't know how those DEC regulations.
Well, I can speak to the fact that when FEMA adopted the most recent flood maps in 2008, anything built from that point forward would have to comply with the elevation
Okay.
2 feet above the base flood elevation. So this property's obviously been here much longer, and if it was used as residential on the ground floor, it would be considered grandfathered in. Now, when you go to remodel or invest in a property that is, a portion of it is within the floodplain, you have to be careful, because if you invest more than 50% of the current market value, it then triggers it to need to comply with today's FEMA flood regulations. So I would caution you to, and
So-
we've had conversations about.
The way it reads is that you're not allowed to increase the property by 25% or increase the more than 50% of the value of the property. So the remodeling cost would not be more than 50% of what the value of the home is. Basically, it needs kitchens, baths, paint, flooring, windows, siding, gutters.
Who determines that?
I've run into this where, if what you put into it is deemed by the building inspector to be more than 50% of what's there, you have to comply to the legal code. It's not granted out.
I'm dealing with that right now in my own residence, which we're going to Josh at 68, because I'm the first to fill out the application, I guess, for the state in the area. And being in the kitchen and bath flooring business, it will be done under the 50%.
Before we continue the discussion, I'm going to move to, this meeting is open to anyone wishing to speak for or against this application. Nothing. Okay. We did receive a few emails that I will read into the record. 213 Lake Road, Dana Pier. This property does not meet the minimum qualifications to be zoned multifamily. The adjoining property does not have adequate distance and it's a safe harbor away from multi-dwelling. There's only 5-foot sidewalk between 223 and 227 Lake Road. This could cause noise, congestion, and duress to the current neighbor. With traffic and so many people so close. Prior it was used for a business and office. This property would infringe on neighbors. There's no backyard to the building. There's also the issue of parking. The driveway connects to the other property and would infringe on it. Lake Road is a quiet neighborhood with only single-family dwellings. To bring multiple residents in would be a travesty to our neighborhood. And they strongly suggest that it's not granted. Raymond Smith at 140 Lake Road says the septic system can't take that amount of current residents in the dwelling. It is a hazard and needs to be fixed. The tenants are in and out all hours of the night possible. I see Mr. Pelosi has applied for a variance to make it a 4-unit dwelling. It was never 4 units. You should not be allowed a variance. I'm a current neighbor, and this is not right. Thank you. This one's 216 Lake Road. Alan Tisdale, whose property is right next to my daughter's new house she is working on. There is no room between the building, just a walkway. This concerns me with the idea of multiple occupants. It could mean noise, parking issues, and a lot of other things. This is not proper acreage to the building either. There's a lot of traffic in and out, even during the night. I'm concerned about multiple tenants being closed. Is there any other?
There's 2 tenants that are working restaurants, the first floor and the second floor. The other tenant upstairs is a framer. And the other tenant that's on the first floor does odd jobs for me, works outside. It's the same 4 cars that have been there since the day I bought it. The septic wasn't complete, it's disgusting, and that's why I hooked it up to the sewer.
So a few questions that I guess we were in the public portion of the meeting. Seeing no one else has any comments, that concludes the public portion of this meeting. Pursuant to NYCRR section 617 of the Environmental Code, I'll make a motion for an unlisted action for the use variance. So, all in favor? So, you saw that the gentleman before, we had a few issues recently with the information provided, maybe the presentation of the information. I think, in my mind, we need some additional information. One, I know Mr. Artuso has stated that there's other multifamilies in the district. I think I'd like to understand what they are, how they're configured, and better understand what that neighborhood is. What does it look like? If you have, hopefully you have copies of the original lease. I know I will always keep leases.
You have them.
From in existing and when you purchased the property?
I was told there was 4 leases. At closing, the 4th lease they gave me was from a property that they owned up on Ridge Road, and they had moved the tenant down before, like 2 years, 3 years before I bought the property. So one of the leases is renewed for closing, because I wanted to have a lease at closing. And she was adamant, if you read the purchase offer, she wanted me to keep all 4 tenants. She was adamant. She called me up after. I don't know if you know the history of Phelps' wife or daughter, but it was the neighbor. They bought the property next door. They can probably tell you more about I think they know more dealings than I do. Because again, I just bought it as is. I never really went in it. And those leases. I've not changed any of the rents.
I don't have any leases, do you? Does anyone have? You have no copies of any leases?
I just got the list.
Believe they're turned in. I have them if you want them, obviously.
I think we need full copies of the
Sure.
leases, especially whatever was turned over to you at the time of closing, and any documentation that it was a 4-family when you purchased it, whether it's written notes that were taken or documented by the attorney.
Well, the closing,
anything.
the closing statement lists the 4
That
leases.
would be, we just need more.
Sure.
Okay? Copies of the leases, copies of the closing statement, documentation of any conversations, get some information around the multi-family units in the neighborhood. Are there more than 2 within a single building? How are they configured? Details on that. I think we've got the information on the FEMA issue that Josh pointed out is clear now. The market rate, help us understand if you converted this to more of a upscale luxury 2-bedroom, maybe you're running into other issues, why you couldn't do that, collecting $1,500 a month in rent, $2,000 a month in rent, if you converted it into a 2-family, maybe it's not feasible. Help us work through these scenarios, right? So you say, if I do that, then I'm into X, Y, and Z. Now I got to comply with the FEMA requirements, right? So these are the types of details that I think we need to tease out of this so that we can be better informed to make a decision. Okay. Anything else that you guys can think of?
Could we get a drawing of the layout of the 4 apartments? Because it just, the building just doesn't look large enough to support 4 families.
Okay.
And more details on what you plan to do. I'm going to put $5,000 into 2 kitchens. I'm going to, right? Give us, kind of a spec out of the materials. This is what I plan to do. I'm going to paint the exterior. This is what I want to do to the property. I think we just need, I don't want to go back to that last application, but you saw the diligence that gentleman went through to provide his case for the use variance. We need to understand this a bit better.
No
Josh,
problem.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem. I can get you all that information.
Do we know the separation between 223 and 227 setback-wise?
When you say separation,
The distance between the 2 dwellings?
5 feet.
4 feet.
Because it looks like they're
There's a sidewalk,
more even type of...
and there was a new fence. I don't know who put up the new fence that was there. So there's a new fence that's put between the 2 properties. When you walk into the backyard, it opens up, but when you walk between the houses, it's only about 5 feet. There was a 60-foot antenna or 70-foot antenna. I took that down because at one point, he ran his shop out of it.
I think we'd also like to, understand better, through a statement, maybe what, if you're not granted the 4 units, what will you do with the property? What does it become? You don't have to answer now, but
Yeah. I don't know the numbers.
explain that to us a little bit better, right? If I can't have 4 units, I'm going to have to put it on the market.
Or I suppose, potentially, if the applicant was interested, there could be a compromise. So I guess you need to consider that as well, in terms of the 3 unit rather than 4.
See what we're driving at? I think you understand that.
Sure.
So,
No problem.
I make a recommendation that you table this to July 26th. No, I'm sorry, that's the deadline. So it's July 27th. July 27th. Can you get the information compiled
Sure.
by, when would we need that? At this deadline.
Yes.
So we need it by. I mean, could we do August 10th and provide it by July 26th? Gives you a little bit more time.
Yeah, that's,
I'm sure you don't care.
I have a conference next week, so that works out good, because I'll be out of town, so.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we table it to August 10th and provide us the additional information by July 26th?
Okay.
If you need more details on the information, just, you can reach back through Josh or to me.
Okay. Yeah, like 247 is, that is listed as multiple?
Yeah, according to our online GIS, it just says multiple residences. When I get back to the office, we can take a deeper look into some other records to see exactly what those buildings have. I don't have the program here.
Thank you.
That's it. Anybody think of any other information? Good. Yeah. All right, so you're fine tabling to, all in favor of tabling this to August 10th, 2021? Okay. See you in August. Thanks.
Did you want to keep those photos?
Yeah.
Okay.